Madam Chair.
It's 1800.
Okay, I call to order the Independent Ethics Review Board on September 11th, 2024 at 6 p.m. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
No one signed up for public comment.
Right, no public comment. So let's move on to the minutes. Consideration of an action on the minutes of August 21st, 2024. Were there any changes, edits, modifications required for those minutes? If there are no changes or additions, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion that we approve and accept the minutes of last meeting.
Second? All right, all in favor of minute approval? Aye. Minutes approved. The next item is our workshop, the continuation of the review of the Code of Ethical Conduct. I would like to first, as we left off last meeting, we do have very few revisions, but because we have gone through this process where we looked back at what the red lines are and then approved them so that we can, kind of formalize and lock those down. Let's do that first. And then do you have a comment? Okay, sorry. All right, so let's look, if we look at it, page 19 of 34 of the packet, I believe is the first revision at the 8/21 meeting. And it was the ownership discussion that we had, so we removed the 10% component of that. Anybody have any objections? Comments around there? Okay. If we move forward to section 2-97, detailed written complaints, we revised name, mailing address, and added email address. And just a little bit of refinement of, instead of saying article, we actually reference the Code of Ethical Conduct. And finally, copies of descriptions of any documentation to substantiate the alleged violations. So some minor revisions, nothing majorly material in my opinion. Any comments, or we feel we can approve those? Okay. And then section 2- no changes for 298. 299, we created consistency and modified it to be business days so that it's consistent throughout the code itself and the procedures. And I believe that is the last approval, if I'm not mistaken. That gets us up to current. Today is to discuss the hearings and the procedures for
Madam Chair.
yes.
I think it should go back to page 17.
Okay.
We haven't been the ones from July.
Oh, well, let's go ahead and do those. Thank you so much. So page 17, let's take a look at the July.
3-88.
So 288, it's actually on the back of it. We clarified from an education standpoint that in order to actually remain in good standing on your board or commission, that you must complete the training. We also removed or proposed removal of the equivalent trainings. Any comments or changes with those? Okay, I think we can approve that. And then if we move into section 292-94, we removed knowingly. I think the discussion was around the burden of being able to prove knowingly and the ambiguity associated with that. And we also removed before bids or proposals are received before voting to award the contract. Changes? Are everyone comfortable with that modification? Okay, let's approve that. Yeah, is that the? Yep, we're back to 19. Okay, great. Okay, so now we will be looking at the hearing procedures for a complaint, and then also once we review the language within here, Meredith and Anjali has provided the actual website so we can do a high level review of the language that we recommended before so that it's make sure it's still consistent with modified procedures and if there are any changes or updates that needed to be made there. The last time we spoke, I will open it up for comments around the hearing procedures. Section 2-100 is the public hearing. And then it goes into the actual like sanctions and possible outcomes. Do we have any initial comments around those particular sections?
My one comment for 2-100 A, it says we'll hold a public hearing and. You know, just from the past, we sometimes had to hold more than one, so I don't know. If, you know, if that's a big deal.
It should be plural or with the S in parens, or are the subsequent public hearings where we've had to have follow-up meetings, is it considered almost a continuation of the same? It's not separate, okay. So in that respect, I would think it would be fine as it stands.
Or as a suggestion, we could put, Ethics Review Board will conduct public hearings to determine whether or not the violation. So we could put the S,
I'm fine with that.
that's your preference.
Yeah, I mean, when I, you know, just if I were to read it for the first time, I'd be like, oh, there's only one hearing kind of thing, you know, just for the,
Keeps it from being limited or seemingly
yeah.
limited.
I can do that.
Any other suggestion?
It goes here, so. Prior hearings, there was some. Distracted and unacceptable behavior. By people who were. Not involved in any way. I'd love to be able to limit that. I don't know if there's already meeting rules that we go by. Or we put something in here. If you attend this meeting and are disruptive. How you go. When people sitting in back up making comments and yelling things that. Were distracting and disruptive.
Would that be more appropriate for the script, you think?
Possibly for the script, I was going to ask, are there assumptions of order that are assumed in normal hearing procedures? So are there standards that may be in place that currently exist that council or other hearings have to adhere to with respect to that? I don't know. So, I mean, are there rules for public, I don't want to say participants because they're not actively participating, but public attendees?
There's a penal code violation for disruption of meetings. So if the hecklers or whatever you want to call them, the individuals in the back want to disrupt a meeting, they can be arrested. But there's a warning system that you have to do. Now, excuse me, citizen A, your behavior or your conduct, you're interrupting our meeting. Please sit down and refrain from talking during this portion of the meeting. Second warning, if you know, I'm letting you know that your behavior is disrupting the meeting. If it happens again, I'm gonna ask someone to have you removed from the room. Third warning, get out.
And it's kind of right here.
I was looking at that, that is only really for the public comment section though.
Oh, the public comments.
Yes, sir. So if someone were to be doing it right now during the workshop, we could invoke the penal code as opposed to kind of a suggestion on how to behave in the public comment. I think that might be more appropriate to put in the script
Reference. Oh, in the script. Mhm.
as opposed to just sticking on here that we're already expecting people to be
Problematic
I would rather not.
from a
be
tone setting perspective.
Antagonistic at the beginning. It's already an uncomfortable room.
Yes.
So, but I'm also confident in our outside attorney's ability to shame people into behaving.
Okay. Does that?
It does,
feel
I just want to
addressed?
make sure that there was some method.
I can add language to the script for you.
Other comments or questions around the public hearing? 100 section itself.
Well, on section B, that speaks of the board not considering hearsay. I don't know what the solution is for this, but I'm just struggling with how do you minimize that? And how do you make that determination?
Well, and it also says like, unless it's basically useful.
Gossip, we don't listen to. Hearsay, we're
Like
gonna
you're saying, I mean, if we find it helpful, we will.
Four people say it.
Say that again.
As long as four people step up and say, yeah, it's really.
Mhm. You know, it's an interesting point, and
Yeah,
When
like
does hearsay become reliable?
Yeah.
Where did we come up with that four people? Is that some other document that four people have to agree?
On the last,
it's the quorum, right?
right, so the last line of B is not that four people have to agree that hearsay is relevant, it's that four people agree, minimum of four people agree to move forward. You're judged by a jury of a quorum, not a jury of, like of 3 or 2.
Will the ethics review board always be this number?
Yes, unless city council passes an ordinance to raise it or lower it, I don't anticipate them to do that, in the number of years that I've been here, the only board that has changed, there's 2 boards that have changed size, the Parks Board changed, and then the Animal Advisory Board changed. But otherwise, and those are only advisory boards, I have not seen. ZBA is set by state law, but P and Z hasn't changed. BSC hasn't changed, I have never seen them aside from the 2 advisory boards. But it would take first and second reading of an ordinance to change.
And then he would catch that we have 4 here.
I would certainly hope so. I think there was a concern that we wanted to say it was 4 members would make the finding as opposed to a quorum. Since a quorum of 7 is only 4, we didn't want 3 people. So we could put supermajority, I guess. Would you prefer a supermajority?
As long as it's the number of people on the board changes, that we update that.
What are your preferences? I get that.
Those are too big a word. How does anyone else feel?
I think a reference to maybe the forum, majority, or history, people understand that it's majority compared to like 4. There might be a question like you asked, how did we come before? Or I'm sorry, you asked.
Yeah, majority might be the clearest.
My only concern with that would be that a quorum of a board of 7 is 4 people. So a majority of 4 would be 3 people. So do you want 3 people of a 7-member board making the decision? Or do you want to have a quorum of the board, whether there's actually, does that make sense?
So how is the majority 3 instead of 4?
Because you have 7 members on your board, and so a quorum of this board is 4 people. It's half plus 1. And so then a majority of, I mean, if you have those 4 people there, the majority would be unanimously for you, so you'd have 3. So technically 3 people could make a determination whether a violation could occur.
What's the definition of supermajority versus majority?
2/3.
Excuse me, Krista?
Yes.
Larry has joined the meeting.
Okay.
About to tell him to put on his camera.
Yeah, he's not present personally.
Oh, Larry. Said Mary, and I was like, I don't.
Nobody's camera, there he is.
No problem, it's just a majority. If we're
Thank you for joining, Larry.
someone's guilt, innocence, future reputation is on the line. I like the idea. of Requiring as many people as we can to make that decision.
How many supermajority?
That may be even more unclear than 4.
Yeah. That, that's my concern. I like the way it's written in the sense that it's definitive. I mean, some of this, I appreciate where we can provide rationale and clarity, you know, where we can, but I think too, it's also very clear, like, that it's that number. I'm comfortable with the number, so, and it,
I am
and
too.
the language
unless there's a
doesn't
change
concern, right?
in them, if they go, oh, well, it's 7 plus your 2 alternates, and now we're gonna make those 2 alternates permanent. Can you go back and rewrite this?
Like footnote. Good point. Where we, how we came up with it.
I've never been asked that.
51% of the
Okay.
minimum of 51% of the board?
Let me ask you this, so if you had to change if your concern is changing the composition of the board, the composition of the board can only be changed through
An ordinance,
an ordinance.
chapter 2.
And so if you're going through an ordinance, are you not also reviewing the implications of the composition of the board? Right, I mean, you're not typically doing that in like isolation.
I would hope that any attorney that is working on this in the future would catch that.
Okay. I'm good with 4. As long as we have some method of, if it total number changes, that number changes.
I think that also probably changes other things too. I can't come up with one off the top of my head, but I would be willing to bet if we thought about the composition of the board and we looked at the impact of the document and like all of our procedures, that could have other implications. So I would assume that if it ever goes through like an ordinance to do that, you're gonna review the procedures of the document to make sure that you don't have any unwanted impact, or you need to make other changes concurrently.
I'll come and make a statement at the public hearing session.
I appreciate it. Right, and a little bit
Okay.
later in today's meeting, you will see that we did go through your hearing procedures and try to update to match the updates you were making here. So we did at least have the forethought to go through our files and check those as well.
Thank you. Any other commentary around section 100? Section 101, sanctions. If I recall correctly, and we don't have it in this packet, these outcomes in my recollection were pretty closely aligned with some of the other comparative city codes. When I did the review for last meeting. So I don't have any very specific questions or changes around here. But obviously, you know, open to discussion. Are there any concerns or?
I feel like we hit the high points, the more likely scenario.
And I like when I was reading this time before last, I did compare, because it's a very sticky section, right? Like, I mean, we want to make sure that we're not out in left field and that we're, you know, following leading practice, and it looked very similar to other cities.
One question.
Yeah.
Which is, letter D,
Mhm.
published by the city secretary in a local newspaper of general circulation. Is that still relevant?
Yes. Would you like me to address that? So, multiple reasons, we use the term of general circulation is because any public hearing notice or any bid notice, election notice that we are required to post, state law requires it to put it in our newspaper of general circulation. So we have one that is paid for every year that is established and designated as our It's got a requirement of how many different households, how often it delivers, whether it's electronic paper, all the different things, there's qualifications as to how it can be considered our newspaper of general circulation, and we alternate between the Independent and I believe the Star.
Harold.
The Herald, I'm sorry, we're using the Herald. And so, but it is designated, so we have one place that all of our notices go. So that phrase is actually a term of art.
So it encompasses electronic as well as paper.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That was really my question, and because because everything keeps switching to electronic, I was just wondering if it's still
Relevant.
relevant.
No, that makes sense.
Would you like it also, me to add language that will also be posted on the city's website, on the ethics website?
I think that would be. Unless anyone's against it, I think that would make sure that it's.
I mean, that will happen for sure on the city website.
On the ethics page of the city website, yes.
Well,
If it's in the ordinance, I have confidence
okay.
that it will happen.
Any other changes around 101? Or thoughts? Okay, let's move on. Go ahead.
So it's basically, all this says that when someone does something wrong, it goes up to city council. If it involves city council, then it goes to
So
the
your
voters, right?
I don't understand your question.
So it says you're only city council, if it's determined that somebody should be removed from a.
Yes, you don't
Or-
have the authority to
Right.
remove an elected or appointed official.
But I feel like what I hear your question is, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, so the final authority to carry out a recommendation.
Just hope
I
that
thought
it's
we
not-
didn't,
You have the authority to impose unilaterally up to letter E.
okay,
Council gets involved if you want to remove somebody, or the citizens get involved if we're removing an elected official, but unilaterally, this. board-
okay, so it's removal of a non-elected official
Council,
for,
yeah, how you get in is how you get out.
Okay.
So council appoints them in, council takes them out. If they're elected in, the citizens elect them out. So how you get in is how you get out.
okay, that clarity is helpful because I was reading G, thinking of G when he was saying that, and I was like, well, no, that has to go to the vote, but if it's a non-elected position, it's an appointed position, then the board that appoints is the board that withdraws, okay,
Whoever puts you in takes you out,
yes, makes sense.
but unilaterally, you'll have authority up to through letter E.
And since we're on G, that same little blurb is in there, will be sent to the local newspaper. Do you want to stay consistent with? what we said
Sure, thank you
earlier?
for catching that. Appreciate it. Thank you, Rachel. Does Larry have anything?
Larry, do you have any changes or comments thus far?
No, I'm in agreement with you guys.
Okay, great, thank you.
How about we make it more obvious that for F and G, we're talking about appointed versus elected, so maybe starting off the section like elected or appointed for part F, and then starting the paragraph, or maybe just bolding appointed versus elected. I think it's easy to overlook.
No, I did, so not in disagreement. No, I think that would be helpful. Is F, I'm just thinking of scenarios, F and G are 100% only elected and non-elected.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
That's the only people that this board applies to.
Somebody could say that.
Well, no, I'm saying like
Here, but we
F
said
is
A
only
through E.
non-elected, F is only appointed and G is only elected. So what if we had like a lead in that said at the beginning, for appointed officials, da, 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 and then the G starts off with for elected officials, so forth. And then that way it's very, at the beginning, like, I'm appointed, G doesn't apply to me, you know, or vice versa.
Now, what about candidates? Or former officials?
That's an excellent question that hasn't come up. How would y'all like to handle that?
Yeah, it could almost be another section.
Well, if we're able to do I hope I'm saving saying A through E, I'm flip back, but if we're able to carry forward or carry out A through E, what other item in F or G would apply, right? So you're not going to remove like the sanction component, right? You could sanction somebody if they were a former elected or appointed official. The best you're going to do is fine or sanction, and then there's other like lesser outcomes. So what I'm saying is F and G really wouldn't apply because if you sanction them, theoretically, that creates ineligibility for future.
Only apply to current sitting elected.
You can't remove somebody who's not the chair.
Right.
But could you remove a candidate?
That's an election code.
That's not under the purview of this because they're not subject to this yet, right? Because this is for, at the very beginning, it's for officials. And so if you're not actually elected, are you subject to the code of ethics?
The only time you are is the campaign contributions.
Correct.
Right. Because it's in that public hearing, it says the accused official, former official, or candidate has a right to attend the hearing.
So then do we need to look at our initial definitions to make sure that it's broadened to encompass that?
Yes. Okay, good catch.
This is where it gets fun.
This is why I'm glad I have all of you to do all this.
So I still think A through E then would apply to perspective. But what you're saying, and I'm just thinking this through, so if somebody files a suspected or possible violation during a campaign, and then I'm elected council member, or appointing one because it's quick, so it would be elected, right? So if I'm now in office and the ongoing investigation, then I could be removed. What you're saying is, if you're a candidate ongoing before the election has concluded and a decision has been made, what is the recourse? Or is there recourse? I mean, we don't have it in here currently. Yes, Larry?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, it made an audible noise here, so I wanted to make sure, okay. So,
Yeah, but it's like if you're gonna follow F and G, like remove them from the ballot or whatever, you know.
Yeah. I think the election code. Or I don't think that this board would have the authority. I think it would be the election code that determines whether or not they can be removed from a ballot. I don't believe that we could administratively take on that responsibility.
Correct. But
be in
if
conflict with it
if someone's,
theoretically.
The election code wins, yeah.
but if somebody is found to have done something wrong at any level, and now it's made public, then the voters have that information before election and they get to decide. Do you want that kind of person?
Which gets me. Goes back to the reasons for dismissal. I think that you look at part of it as frivolous as to the timing of when the complaint was filed. On 299B. I'm trying to think through a situation with the candidate, and like you said, getting the information out there for the voters.
Yeah, you want to prevent like the weaponization of the board too, right? Like that it doesn't become a mechanism for
Right, you make the complaint
political
based on the
activity.
election date, and
Right.
if the board can't make a determination until afterwards based on how fast we can call things. I don't know how to fix that.
But see, I think that's the better scenario. Like, if you don't make a determination, they become an office, then it's clear. To me, what's unclear is if it's prior to the actual election. So if you have a candidate that's running, the confusion and the authority is what I'm saying, like the outcome. So if,
So if it happens in March as opposed to May.
sure. Yes.
It's May election.
Yes, so it's a May election and something happened in March and our board reviews it in April and we say, yes, you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing this to us. You know, we're finding in favor of the individual who filed the complaint against this candidate. So what? Like, so what like, what is the recourse? Because you can't remove them from office if they're not in office. You could still sanction, fine, and censure. But does the sanction preclude them from being able to take office? I don't think so.
You can't.
Right, so point being, like, it doesn't have an equitable recourse as a recommendation for removal or a recommendation for a recall. It's a loophole. But I'm not sure how to close it. Because as Meredith indicated, we can't remove, like, we wouldn't have the authority,
Right.
election code to remove them from the ballot.
But they could be fined.
Right, we have.
It could be fine, they could be, there a letter at admonition, you know, all of the,
Yeah, we have up to E, so.
If they have an opponent, you know the opponent's gonna be telling, but
okay, and then here's a hypothetical, well. Do we have a clause on the duplication of complaints? So point being, if hypothetical, this is all hypothetical, but if the board found in favor of the person who filed the complaint against the candidate, if the board found against the candidate and the candidate takes office, hypothetically, somebody could file it again. And then they could be recommended for a recall.
Yeah, that's right.
If the timing is right.
Well, theoretically, if they're a candidate, because we have, I don't remember the year, 2 years. So, I mean, you would still have the statute and they would still be able to file. So theoretically, if it was that egregious and we wrote a letter of admonition and fined you $2,000, and then somebody's like, this is terrible, and now they're in office, somebody could file another complaint.
If again, the window is 2 years.
Yeah.
And then that puts them subject to G.
Yes. You close the loop.
Just mentally close the loop. I mean, that would be how, like, if it was something egregious.
What was the word that you duplicate?
Oh, like duplication of complaints. So anything that, so if we've already heard something related to a subject matter that we wouldn't hear it again, or that we would still hear it, I think we're silent to that.
Does it have to be a separate person that's bringing that complaint? Do we know?
That's where I'm trying to get through the thought process of whether or not it's res judicata, because this is not really criminal.
No?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
But you've already made a determination, so it's almost like you're reconsidering a determination you've already had. And
You can consider an action. You could file the complaint against the action too, couldn't you?
file a complaint on
Like an
behalf-
appeal.
No,
per
we
se.
don't- We don't have that set up, but that was on your list.
That was on my list. And I don't know that we need one, so it's just because it's on my list, that it's not me, that's not necessarily a proposal, but it's something we need to talk about.
I would question bringing it back, just having the revolving door.
Yeah.
Where you keep having to look at the same issue because
We've already said this, we've already said,
they
you know,
don't
like,
your answer, and so the next person files it, and we go down the row. And you're meeting to hear the same thing over and over out of hopes that we've annoyed you enough that you change your vote. I would.
But-
I would probably, when it comes to me, send it to you all with a recommendation of dismissal because you've already made a determination on this matter.
well, what if the facts have changed? Because when it was reviewed, the person was a candidate, and now this person is holding office. And so this was reviewed and the action was taken based upon the available actions as a candidate. The
Yeah, we weren't able to
if
go
it
to
was something that required that the board voted and whatever the facts were, that was like, okay, we want to present this as something that a recall should be considered, that was not even on the table if they're a candidate. But I mean, you don't want a revolving door.
You were about to say something.
I was thinking that if it's a situation, but the only fact that has changed is that now the person is no longer a candidate, but now an elected official. I don't think that's enough to keep that revolving door going. The fact that changed has to be something that we missed. We didn't hear
Or
something.
additional
first go around.
information.
Significant additional information. So no matter what somebody does, I don't think it's fair to keep, rotating this.
So we're silent to it, to the ability to do it.
And it's not out of our hands. They're a candidate. We didn't appoint them. We didn't elect them.
I think that when you do your determination and you vote as to what it would be, you would say, since they're only a candidate, the most we can impose would be this. However, if they were in office, we would have recommended this.
But then what's the so what out of that? The so what? So like, okay, so we say that. And then they become elected.
But that's out of our hands.
Mhm.
You've still made that statement, it's still been published.
So someone else can come for like someone could petition for,
Well, even if they are an elected official and you say, I think that, they should be recalled, we still have to have a petition to go forward. So no matter what you decide, somebody could have that petition go forward. So whether
you don't need the board to do it.
you don't have enough signatures to do it.
No, I know, but
I
I'm
would
saying to make the
recommend don't-
recommendation. You don't need the board to make the recommendation is what I'm saying.
That's correct. In your thing, when you vote, you could say, as a candidate, the most stringent we could impose is this. However, if you were an elected official, we would recommend blah, blah, blah. And then you say that, you put the thought out
And then
there.
you're done.
Yeah, and then
But then do we need to have something in here language to prevent duplicate filings?
I think that's gonna go back to the city
Or
attorney.
you're just gonna say where it's frivolous
I'm gonna
or,
recommend you dismiss it because you're still gonna have to be the deciding body. We can't in our office
Yeah.
say yes or no, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna go back and say, you've heard this, I recommend dismissal that you've heard this on this date.
But if another complaint is filed and there's new information, I think we could still make the determine whether or not.
Sure.
It
Right.
stops.
based on whatever
continues.
is presented.
Well, you kind of did that this past year. You had a complaint that wasn't signed and sworn, so you dismissed it, and then it was refiled, signed and sworn, so you did hear it. And I think that's an example of it's not a revolving door.
Right,
That's a change, I mean, it now meets the qualifications.
yes.
I think there are enough checks and balances from what I'm hearing. I think
Mhm.
that's enough.
I just don't wanna allow or to put you in a situation where you do it over and over and over, because that's not a good use of resources. And it's not fair to that person.
No, definitely
It's a
not.
witch hunt.
If one person filed a complaint, pass it on to us. We deal with it however we deal with it. Now, second person files a complaint for the same action against the same person. Will that come to us, or do you say to them, they've already been adjudicated for that, what they did?
It would come to it and you would have to, I guess. Cause the first time you make the decision, though, you don't have the evidence in front of you because you have to say, yes, the person is subject to it, yes, blah, blah, blah. I guess in the gatekeeping, we would say,
They've already-
additional evidence has been submitted. I would recommend that you go forward, or no new evidence has been submitted. I would make a recommendation that you blah, blah, blah. I would think that there would have to be something like, there's another witness, I found another piece of paper, or they've done it again, as opposed to, well, I didn't like it, so now I'm gonna complain. Because
Well, and that's why we're asking in our procedures, we're asking for like documents and information that would substantiate the allegations. And I think that goes back to that with your complaint, we're asking you to provide.
so if the first person filed and you all said, okay, we've listened to it, we've done all this, there's not enough here, no. And somebody comes back a week later, a month later and goes, here, I've got 10 more pieces of paper.
Yes.
And you go, oh, new information, I'm gonna do it again,
But if they don't have anything new,
then you've already done it.
And that's outlined.
I would say to you, in my gatekeeping is, no additional information has been submitted, the information that was submitted is the same as what was previously submitted. And my recommendation would be that you dismiss it because you've already heard it.
And not because it's frivolous.
The way frivolous is defined, I don't know that I would have the gatekeeping ability to call it frivolous. I think you would have to call it
We would be the
frivolous.
one that would make that assertion.
Under 299,
But what you're saying, you could stop it from even.
no.
They are, okay.
I'm never gonna stop it from reaching you. And I think that if it's somebody who's not subject to the code, I'm not gonna let it get to you. I will send you an FYI and say, hey, we received an ethics complaint that, Andy Griffith, Mayberry has violated one of our code of ordinances, an ethics violation. Just FYI, I dismissed it. It doesn't meet the threshold. But if they meet the thresholds, it's gonna go to you. I am not in a position, I don't think the purpose or the intent of this code is for me to make that decision. I think, I strongly believe that it is the will of council, the will of this ordinance, that the residents, you're appointed to be their voice, make that call, not me.
The
But
question was really just if you, I guess if you would just, if it would come back to us, you could still say, this is. You could still provide a recommendation. It could be based on. It's frivolous, or it could be based on, you've heard this information already.
So 298B, I will take one of the following actions, dismiss the complaint if A, B, C, or D. Depending on what the complaint is, I may dismiss it and send you an FYI if it's Andy Griffith. Like the first one I sent to you because it wasn't signed and sworn. Based on the nature of what it was, I didn't feel like politically I should be the one to make that call. But under 2 is I would forward it to you and I can make a recommendation. And so I would make a recommendation. I'm sorry, that would be C on. I'm sorry, it wasn't 2, it was C, I misspoke. So the city's recommendation, conduct further proceedings. Using myself, it was 2, I'm sorry. But I would include, the recommendation that it be dismissed because it wasn't signed and sworn, depending on how public it was and what the topic was. Like the last one I sent to you, there was no way that should have been done in-house. I needed y'all to be the decision maker on it based on the fact it was the mayor who was accused. I don't want that to be an internal decision ever. But had it been somebody on the Parks Board, I probably would have said, as a Parks Board member, this has been accused, it's not signed and sworn. I've notified the person who filed the complaint. This is not moving forward to you. I would also say this has already been filed. There's no new information. I recommend dismissal. You guys come forward. You have your first hearing. You have Mr. Kerwin sitting in the room with you as your attorney. And you go through and you go, wow, look, there's nothing different. We've already done this. Have a great day. But I feel compelled that most of these decisions must be yours.
Does frivolous cover baseless and unfounded? On 299A1, where it says dismiss as frivolous. We find that it was a baseless accusation or unfounded.
B tells you, so we would need to add it to the. Well, I guess B3.
Right.
Should that be an or, not an and?
Or an and/or.
Yeah, that's a good point. And/or.
They catch them. Even if it says and, I think it's probably fine, or just saying we'll consider all these things.
Business, address your question on baseless and groundless? Or would you want us to add stuff?
As long as if we determine that frivolous and we say, yeah, and our only answer in that case is frivolous. Be true determination, but it would be our only choice. In which case the outcome would be the same. Frivolous, unfounded.
I don't know. Maybe as part of your forwarding to us, it would just be flagging to us that we've heard this complaint before. So the city attorney could do more of a flag instead of. Anything else? As far as a recommendation.
I wouldn't mind having unfounded if frivolous, completely different legal definition. You sent us this thing and we saw no evidence for it. You sent us this thing and we think it was a waste of time. Frivolous.
We clarify it. We define it in B. So while we're not, it's not like it written as a definition, but we're saying like, these are the following scenarios that we would determine it would be frivolous. And so while we're not defining like frivolous as the word, we're defining it as a situation in which we would determine that the complaint would be frivolous.
I mean, I think if it's a second complaint that's identical.
I was thinking, yeah,
List, yeah.
if it was first complaint.
Anjali just pointed out a really good provision.
It's on page 54 of the packet from last week.
Do you have a section number?
Dallas.
Oh, I have Dallas right here.
54?
Yes. Yeah, page 54, City of Dallas, section 12A-54. Subsection C.
Got it.
By a panel of the ethics advisory commission, if the evidence failed to establish a violation, the ethics advisory commission shall not entertain any other similar complaints based on substantially the same evidence.
I like that.
Want me to add that?
Yeah.
Where do you want to add it?
Let me surprise you.
Each.
Look forward to your recommendation.
Clearly,
I read this very well, actually.
she's a rock star.
Good job.
I know, I only highlighted the two sections above it, so like I missed that one altogether.
It was teamwork.
There's a lot here.
There is a lot here. Okay, so I'm going back to, so Meredith and Anjali has taken that down to incorporate the red section that we just read. Do we have any other comments with respect to section 101?
We've done an exhaustive review.
I'm not gonna ask for final answers. Okay, so section 102, name clearing proceedings. Does this have? Describe section 2-97.
That 90th calendar day. That Have we seen that before?
What the previous board recommended.
We've been saying business day
Yeah.
everywhere else,
Yeah.
and that's a good point, however, 90 days. is a pretty long time.
That's 3 months.
Well, so here's my thing on this one. So complaints received from third parties must be filed no later than the 90th calendar day after the official first learned of the allegations. We want to make sure that, I know it sounds long, but we need to make sure that you have time for the hearing. So for example, if a complaint was filed against me and I go through all of this, and I'm like, I didn't do any of this doesn't make any sense. I present my case and the board's like, oh, you're so right. You were not in the wrong. And I'm like, well, hey guys, like I just went through all of this in the paper. You posted the complaint on the city website. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, informal allegations of a potential violation. So it didn't actually get to you all. There was a rumor, they want to fix the rumor, is the purpose of this section.
Oh. So I was under the impression that the section was, that you want to declare, like, you want something published on the city's page in the newspaper in the same manner in which the complaint was filed against me.
But this was not an actual filed complaint, it was informal, so this was a rumor. What this was is years ago, we had a council member in a council meeting make an allegation against another council member, but nothing was ever filed. And so the person who was accused of doing something got really angry and said, no, I want to have a full-blown hearing and prove that I didn't do it. But we didn't have provision to the code at the time. It was the original rendition, not the one that y'all wrote. This is not that you've already heard it. This is, you didn't get a chance to hear it, and I want you to publicly tell everybody, go through the process, I'm innocent.
Yeah, I didn't,
That is not how I figured it
Yeah,
out. And then you're right, because when you said that,
Right.
where informal allegations or potential violation.
Yes, ma'am. There was nothing formally filed. It was just a statement.
And therefore, 90 calendar days seems adequate.
If you do it a year later, nobody cares anymore. Or it wasn't important enough to you.
Right.
I'm still open to changes if you want to make changes.
so who's investigating these allegations? They desire an investigation of such allegations. So who's doing that investigation?
Would be us. Or
That's
we'd be
us,
hearing
so
it.
we have to investigate.
Something that wasn't alleged, like formally.
Rumor.
I think this is similar to what you currently do, but instead of somebody filing a formal allegation, the elected or appointed official comes up to you and says, there was this rumor, so-and-so said all this, and I want you to look at it and say that I didn't really do all this. So it's kind of a half hearing.
But so it'll still go to you though?
It'll still come to me and it'll still go to you. And you will look at it and go, you're right, not enough information. Now, you have to think that they're never gonna give you information that makes you go, whoa, I wish somebody had filed a complaint because you really did do this.
Are you sure you want us to look into this? Because we may find something.
Oh, did we lose Larry?
You would.
Okay. And so. Sorry, distracted. They're gonna come to you and say, I want you to look at this and tell the world I didn't violate anything. Because my reputation is tarnished and I expect, I have such opinion of your opinion carries so much weight. I want you to make a finding that I didn't do it so I can publish it. Does that make sense?
It does.
You look a little,
I don't love it, but it's fine.
But then I guess we have to investigate it.
I don't feel like it's the role of this board
I was gonna
to
say,
investigate rumors and like,
you wanna take it out?
I think, cause then, yeah, we have to either dismiss as frivolous or, or we'll have to investigate it.
And by investigate, it means you're gonna go through your normal hearing procedures.
mhm.
Because you're
And then-
investigating the other complaints when they are
It's not
filed.
holding necessarily a public hearing, it's just we get together and we determine whether or not we just dismiss it as frivolous. That would be.
But the person wants an official dismissal.
Facebook.
I'm just trying to think, what evidence would we look at?
They probably won't have any really to counter their claim about being innocent, right? So there wouldn't be, we would have to dismiss it as frivolous.
And then if it's not, do you go to the person who did it, who said started the rumor and go, hey, you should have done that?
Or you should have filed the complaint here,
It's not,
Well,
you
we
know,
talked
it's,
about this
it's not,
topic.
or is it the city attorney's responsibility, once you observe that, to then tell the person making the accusation to file the complaint? To go through the proper,
I've actually had a person email me a number of times and I said, if you are trying to file a complaint, I cannot accept it. You must send it to the city secretary's office and it must be signed and sworn. Numerous emails later, the person did that and y'all got an opportunity to hear it. I am not gonna unilaterally do this one. Would you like us to look at other cities?
I was literally just doing,
Did I include that?
yeah, cause I'm trying to even think like, what would we call this?
and in my mind, and I know it says otherwise, I thought this was like, somebody filed a formal complaint against me, so we published it in the paper.
Right.
On the city website, the hearings have gone through and it's been found in my favor that I didn't do what everybody thought I did. And now I'm like, can you please issue a statement? And put it in the paper and put it on the website that says, like, clear my name and say, she did not do this, because what we do, we don't do that now. And that's what I thought this section was for.
yeah. And there's other, I think, I can't recall which code, but there has one, there's at least one example where it is more in that scenario.
I don't,
And it's like. It is a formal proceeding and they wanted their names cleared. Should have. Marked it.
I mean, kind of like the ones we've heard, like.
so like at the end, the statement would have been published. On X date, the board heard a complaint regarding the board has found.
So in that case, we probably need to just put in language that says, unless it has been formally addressed, that's not in our purview.
I mean, I'm not gonna dig in, but I would just take an X to this whole section. I would either repurpose it or just,
It bothers you that much.
And it- yes, I just don't feel that within the scope of this board and the purpose of this board is to provide governance with respect to the code of ethical conduct. And so
Rumors aren't in there.
informal allegations and informal, oh, they didn't do what's in the code, does not feel like it rises to the level of this board governance structure. I feel like
Behavior.
it either needs to be formal or it doesn't.
That's fairly interesting.
Yeah,
That's
it's like-
the language we have.
Mhm. Is that in last week's packet?
Yeah.
In section 92-92?
Yes, ma'am.
What page number?
93 of 153.
I should have told you that, I control it.
I know I got it from somewhere.
2-92?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. We have very similar timeframes and everything.
Oh.
One of us borrowed from the other.
Looks like it.
Yes, handled in the same manner and in accordance with the same procedures as complaints received. I think that's it.
Well, where did I see something different that would pertain to more formal proceeding?
Yes, sir.
So. If it's the same procedure as the complaints received. We wouldn't be hearing it if it's been formal. So that's not in our scope anyway.
That's my perspective.
According to this from Fairland.
Pretty sure their intent was that it goes to their board. They never want to put it in their ethics ordinance. You know, a request for declaratory relief. Y'all would be the ones that could get the declaratory relief. Filed under this section shall be handled in the same manner and in accordance with the same procedures as complaints received from third parties. So there is the anticipation that they come forward and they say, I would like a name clearing, hearing. And they fill out the form, they sign it, now that's saying that, you know, this is the information. And I look at it and go, well, yeah, you are subject to the code. Well, if true, this would be a violation of the code. Congratulations, ethics board, you're gonna have another meeting with Mr. Carl. And it goes to you all.
Okay.
It's your recommendation, you want it out, it comes out, make that recommendation to you.
My recommendation would either needs to be removed or retooled for somebody that's been subjected to a formal complaint.
Well, we're not talking about a formal complaint, we're back to informal.
That's what I'm saying. So I'm saying as it's written, I would remove it. Or I would change it to where there are name clearing proceedings for somebody who has had a formal complaint alleged against them. So that went through our procedures. And so that if we found on the person who was, the complaint is about, that they could have some sort of declaratory relief in the same manner in which the allegation was made, the paper on the.
But it does not include it. I can read that.
Would that be considered an appeal?
Sort of, what's the appeals process?
We don't have one.
Yeah.
But what you're proposing, would that not be the appeal process? And but you're calling it a name clearing hearing, so they've been the process, they want you to go back again.
When I brought up appeal process, my intent, not proposal, was to discuss other cities that had an appeal and a reconsideration process. So I looked at, tell you the city, it's on 107 of last time's packet is reconsideration, and then it's also in the Dallas, or page 47 of 153 is an appeal. So a person that is a party to the complaint or subject of an appeal may appeal the commission's decision. So it's an actual appeal of the decision. What I'm speaking about from the name clearing is the decision doesn't want to be appealed. You don't want to appeal the decision. You agree with it. You want your name cleared based on the decision. So the board found in your favor, and you want declaratory relief.
But that wouldn't be a second proceeding, that would be. Okay.
So it's not, I'm retool it all together.
But they would have a name clearing in conjunction with the regular hearing.
Yes.
So
So they could, if at the conclusion of the hearing, the board finds in favor of the person that the complaint was made about.
you deem it frivolous.
No,
Just,
or possibly, yes,
If you're innocent.
Yeah,
So if you
but-
say they're innocent,
correct. If you declare the innocence from the complaint, that person could then seek a declaration that they were basically found innocent of this complaint. In the same manner in which the complaint is made. So for example, if you put in the paper and the website that I have alleged to done X, Y, and Z, you can then clear my name by the same process.
now, didn't we,
Or do we already publish that?
didn't we dismiss the case based on lack of evidence? We weren't saying that you're innocent.
Right. So that's why I would say it's like a name clearing, meaning that the person who the complaint was made about has to file for one, has to request it.
I guess the question in that case is it sufficient that the minutes be posted on the website showing the outcome of the decision, and that is that?
Or decisions are posted. Full stop.
That's what we've done. So far, I mean, decisions were posted and
But decisions were not put in the
In the paper?
Cause isn't
well,
that
a copy is provided, they could put it in the paper, I suppose.
fair?
Then they have to pay the publication cost rather than us. So there is a difference there.
And they were not at fault. based on the scenario. We're at 7:05. This has actually been very great conversation, so I think this is incredibly valuable. I do think we still need to, I think we need to have an actual discussion as to whether or not we should have an appeal or reconsideration process. We should probably firm up where we land with respect to the name clearing procedures. I would request that Meredith or Anjali, if we could, not in this document yet, but if we could, similar to an attachment, have some draft language of what it could look like if we did a name clearing proceedings post procedures, meaning we have found in favor of the respondent and what retooling the section could look like. Let's not put it in red line yet. Like, I don't know that we're even to that point, but I feel like that would help our discussion of like, keep it as it is, just remove it altogether, or incorporate it in some other capacity in this way. So that would give us all three things right in front of us to make an informed decision.
So you're talking about keeping this one, this informal one, but adding a formal one.
My recommendation is to remove it altogether. And then maybe, depending on where we land on this, consider having a name clearing procedure. Now, as Meredith indicated, I'm not probably through with that discussion in the sense that, you know, that person could put it in the paper themselves. You know, there's things to think through on that. So it would be nice to see some draft language around it to then have a better kind of idea. Does that make sense? Or maybe it doesn't. I'm a visual person, so like if you see it and like, yeah, that sounds good, or I don't know that we need that. And then hopefully next time we can get to like whether just a discussion or debate around whether we need an appeals reconsideration process. And I looked at the ones that was in our packet from last time. I don't know if it was City of Austin has an appeal process, and then I want to say the other one was League City. Interestingly enough, they have a reconsideration. Those were just two that I highlighted. There might be more in there. But just again, so that we can make an informed opinion on what makes the most sense. Are there any other topics or thoughts or concerns moving into the next meeting?
Did you want to also revisit the ex parte in the part?
Yeah, so that's not what I thought it was, if I'm being honest. So I revisited that, and I'm not sure that I feel like we have some confidentiality language already within the code that I feel kind of touches on that. But I'm open to having discussion.
That would be one where many codes have a section for it. I'm not
Yes.
sure that's good, but
I'd be interested in their office's opinion on that too. And then we'll hopefully be able to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it kind of governs how we communicate as a board too, right? So when there's a
Yes.
case we don't talk to, you better off.
And that ties to the open meetings act.
Right.
One other item that I thought about, and I've read it somewhere and I don't know that I have it flagged. But there was one of the cities had some language around that you are compelled to participate in this procedure. Meaning if you sit on a board or if you're an appointed official or an elected official, that you are compelled to participate if you're involved or the subject matter that you govern is involved in. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was just like a blurb that said, you know, as an official, you're expected to not adhere, but participate. If we ask you for something, please give it to us.
This is the only other thing you mentioned from your last list.
Oh, and the thing, yes, thank you, and whether or not we need a retaliation clause or statement. For complaints made in good faith. I think we have another full meeting, Meredith.
Yes, ma'am, you're not rid of us yet.
We're getting very, very close, and I think we've made great progress today, and I appreciate everybody's thoughtful discussion. Do we have any other? Oh, logistics. Chris has indicated she is not able to make it on Wednesday. I don't recall, there is a day of the week that I believe Doug is not available.
Mondays.
Mondays. Are there any other day restrictions if we look at a Tuesday or a Thursday?
Yes. We have city council meetings,
Yeah.
BBA, all CPs Wednesday, P and Z. You're not gonna get this room on a Tuesday.
Okay,
And you may get this room, but you won't have staff.
Okay.
Because we'll be running,
we'd rather have that than the room.
well, we won't be able to run two separate camera systems.
Yeah.
Saturday morning is good for everybody.
But what does that mean for Thursday? Other than,
Thursdays don't work.
okay, so every day we're losing somebody, so then let's go back to the city availability. So
Mondays and Wednesdays.
Mondays and Wednesdays, okay,
I'm good with Wednesdays. Either.
Either for me too.
both work for me, so.
Do you want to start alternating Mondays and Wednesdays? So Chris could come to some Mondays and then Doug could come to the Wednesdays and give them both opportunities? Or do you want to be consistent? This is the date, we're done.
Whatever makes the most sense from the organization standpoint. I do like the idea and the prospect of being able to engage both of them on the feedback, especially as we have the red lines. We're approving those each time, so that would capture more input. So from a substance, I like the idea, but from a practicality, if it's difficult, it's.
Or if they're scheduled out in advance.
They've both said
Meeting.
never a Monday and never a Wednesday, so,
But yeah, we have a Wednesday,
if
and he
we're
was unable to
alternating-
make it as well.
exactly.
The only conflicts I have on Wednesdays is the second Wednesday.
So, right now we're scheduled for Wednesday,
October 2nd.
thank you. October 2nd.
I'm out of town. And Monday's national, or Tuesday's national.
I think for. Is anybody opposed to leaving it as it's currently scheduled for the next meeting?
I can zoom.
Because I've also, Chris has been so kind to send me feedback electronically, so. Been able to capture some of that way. Okay.
It's October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Mhm. Anything else before I ask for a motion? All right, with that, may I have
I
a
make a
motion
motion.
a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn, yeah.
Second, all in favor?